Welcome to the La Cancha podcast for new listeners, and welcome back for my loyal band of three followers. If someone told me at the start of the season that Rayo Vallecano and Osasuna would be in the top six 1 quarter through the season, I would have rushed that person to the nearest hospital and had them checked out. But here we have it, and it's brilliant to see that. But we're gonna start at the top of the table this week with Real Sociedad, who are the new leaders of La Liga, and it was a hard fought win for them. They labored in the first half. They labored to break down Mallorca, and then they ended the first half in the worst possible way with the red card. And you sort of thought that maybe at that point, them going top was way too much in them. In the second half, I was a bit disappointed with Mallorca's approach. I expected Mallorca to be more expansive, to go for it more. But even as late as the 88th minute, they were hoping and waiting for a draw. They were time wasting in some points, and even the manager's comments at the end of the game felt showed that he was going for a point, because there's like a point like that can be a difference between life and death for us. But lo and behold, that point never came, thanks to Lobete, who came on enthusiastically. He had a shot, wasn't the greatest shot, but he was facing not the greatest keeper, Manolo Reina, who I feel might be one of the worst goalkeepers in Spain's two top divisions. And his error led to the goal. It was a brilliant moment for the youngster who scored at the Camp Nou in match day one, and he scored in front of the fans. And the atmosphere in this game was out of this world. Real Sociedad were bouncing all the time. The fans were like amazing. They were with the team, and it's one of those games that I feel a year ago, when there weren't fans in the stadium, maybe Mallorca could have won. But the fans, you can tell the fans, like, they transmitted that energy to the players to keep on going. And at the end, when they scored, like, the stadium erupted, and it was brilliant to see. It was also brilliant to see images of Real Sociedad celebrating the cup with the players, and well, the cup with the players and with the fans, and because it's the first time the fans had the chance to be there, and it was really beautiful scenes. And I know Real Sociedad, they were top at this point of last season, but this is feels a bit different because they've had to go through lots of obstacles. Like in this game, they got the red card prior to the game. They lost Oyarzabal to injury. This was the game where David Silva was meant to come back. They have a lot of players who are still missing, and players who haven't had that fitness, but they're still managing to find results, which is tremendous credit to Emmanuel Agosil, because to do that with his team, to trust in the youngsters to find yourselves on top of the table, it's a brilliant job that he's done so far, and we'll see whether how long they can maintain it. Another team that had a bit of a selection issue this week, but still got the job done, was Sevilla. And Sevilla, they have a habit of picking up points despite poor performances, and I do think they were really poor in this game. They failed to create much in the first half. Celta in the second half had the better chances, and I felt they should have won. They had the clearer occasions. Bono had a brilliant game. He made some really key saves. And Celta can also find themselves like a victim of poor finishing as well. But with Sevilla, it was a weird lineup that he had. They were missing two of their best centre backs in Diego Carlos and Koundé. Also, they played a back three, but two of them aren't centre backs. Goudet and Fernando aren't centre backs, played as centre back, and Rekic, who normally plays as a left back, played centre back. And they also missed Acuna, and in that place, Augustinsson, the first Swedish player to play for Sevilla, started in this game, and he had a decent game. And generally in defense, I feel maybe they were a bit too conservative because they were protecting an unfamiliar defensive line, and that led to a more conservative approach. But and you can also give credit to Lopetegui, because given the absences, they still got the results. And it was Rafa Mir who was a fox in the box, which is something that they didn't have with Luke de Jong, who was able to help them get that result. And looking forward to the Champions League, I sort of worry for Sevilla against Lille. I know Lille, they are not in the best of form, but they need to have better performances in order to get out of that group at this moment, because it is, I think they're the best team in the group, but they're not performing at that level yet. Also, in the league, to continue that momentum, they need to improve. They need to improve where they are and where they are in the performance levels, because at the moment they can't keep on getting away with poor performances and picking up points. Who knows? Maybe they will, but I find it difficult that they will continue to do it that way. And the opposite is Villarreal, because like we spoke about Sevilla, who they play badly, but they still pick up points. They're 3 points off the top. They're level on points with Atleti and Real. Villarreal, they're the opposite. They play really well, but lack of finishing or crazy errors lead to them throwing away points, throwing away silly points that they shouldn't be throwing away. And that's what happened in this game. Osasuna, they started really well. Villarreal were poor in the first half. In the second half, Gerard Moreno scored an absolute golazo, and they were pressing on. Champions Chukwueze came on after his long injury spell, and it looked like they were going to get the winner, but Isamandi, stupid pass to give away, he gives that away, and Chimi Avila scores a goal, his first goal in over 651 days. It was a brilliant moment for him. I like Chimi a lot. Like when he first came to La Liga, or even when it was in the Smart Bank, you heard about him, you heard about his goals, and he scored those goals for Huesca. He was brilliant in the first seasons he had with Osasuna before he got his major injury, and at that point he was being linked with Atletico, Barca, Sevilla. Barca actually wanted to sign him before he got that injury as an emergency signing, and he was going to go for 25 million euros. But since then, he struggled with fitness. He's been out for a long time, and see that moment of joy when he scores. He takes off his shirt at the end of the game. The manager comes and gives him a warm embrace. It was the best image of the match day, in my opinion. And it's nice to see a team like Osasuna up there doing well. They've got 4 away wins in a row, the best away start, level with Real Madrid and Cadiz. And it's brilliant to see them where they're at the moment. Whether they can maintain it, I don't know. Especially since they lost Kike in this game. But Chimi needs to really step up. He needs to get his goal up if they are to maintain the start. And also, in terms of going in line with fairy tales, we have Rayo Vallecano. And they're one of my favorite teams to watch. I really love watching them play. When I wake up on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. to watch them, I feel it's worth it. And this game was really worth it. It was, for me, it was the best game of the weekend in Spain because of how fluid it was. Both teams went for it right from the get-go. Elche scored first, Rayo came back, and they came back and they played some really brilliant football. And if anyone hasn't watched them, I would recommend them to watch the team, because playing at Vallecas, the atmosphere is really nice from on TV. Also, just they're a team that always go for it, and their style of play made a Rayo fan question whether this team was better than 14-15. Like, the league season is still in progress, but from what I can see, I would say this team is more complete than the 14-15 team, because they have that defensive solidarity that the 14-15 team didn't have. The 14-15 team, they were more exciting. They were like, it was kamikaze football. It was crazy football. But this team, although it's less crazy, I find it's more balanced. For a low to mid-table team, it's difficult to find a balance that Rayo have. And they also have that extra star quality in Radamel Falcao, who didn't play in this game, and they still won. And that shows you how strong they are as a team. For Elche, I find in this game, they maybe played with fire too much. They played a game where they were exposed to Rayo's superior playing ability and superior intensity, and that's possibly what led to them losing the game. But I do respect an approach. I do respect it when a team tries to play football and tries to go toe-to-toe with another team and not be overly conservative. But Elche's loss is a long-running trend this weekend, with Valencian teams losing. Villarreal lost, Elche lost, and Valencia also lost. And Valencia lost to Barcelona. Barcelona, they were good in this game. It was a good performance. They showed resilience in coming back from a goal behind. The first couple of goals in this game were brilliant. Gaya's volley was a peach. Ansu Fati's curler was also brilliant, and he he provoked a penalty, a controversial penalty that we'll get onto, and he was one of the two key guys in this game. The first, like, he scored the goal. Obviously, he provoked the penalty, and he was always a threat going forward. It was always a threat. He was like going against Volkier. I felt that he always had to beat up Volkier, and I wonder what would have happened if Thierry Correa had played this game. Whether it would have been a more even battle. And he's one of the bright sparks for the league and for Spain. And I don't think Spain has had such a star coming up since maybe Raul, Villa, and Torres' generation, an attacking player who's that efficient up front, who's skillful, and the future is bright for him, and he can lead the new generation of Barcelona. And I'm not sure whether we might see that this season or whether that will be to come in the following seasons as he develops. But you just hope that he can stay fit, he can be there, he can be influential as the big games come. The other key player was Serginho Dest, who was brilliant. Valencia's their strongest side is the left side, and he muted that side for most of the game. Also, he was there as an attacking threat. Like, the main reason why Coutinho scored his goal was because of Dest's like relentlessness, his ability to never give up, to chase the balls, to chase lost causes, to be a nuisance when he needs to be. And he was that. He gave Gaia a tough matchup for that. But Valencia, I would say they were really poor. The penalty, like, we can speak about that because the penalty was controversial. I think seeing that from TV and looking at it, you're wondering why VAR didn't intervene, because you can see clearly from TV that Gaia gets the ball. The only explanation that I've heard is that Gaia gets the ball, but he impedes Ansu's ability to shoot, and that's what the defender is meant to do. So I don't know what the referee was thinking at that point. I think maybe, I don't know what he was thinking. I just feel that VAR didn't want to correct him, and sometimes I hate that with Spanish football at times. But I don't feel you can fully blame the results on that penalty, although I do feel it sort of influenced the game, for sure. But Valencia, they were really poor. They're going through a tough run at the moment. With this game, it's 5 games without a win, 2 draws and 3 defeats. Defensively, they were all over the place. They were sorely missing out at Ete in this game, and offensively, they had chances in that 15-minute spell, but they were not forceful in going for that goal, in going for the equalizer. If they were forceful, maybe the game's changed, it's different, but they weren't at the moment. And as the substitutions came on, the team got weaker and weaker and weaker, especially after Fouquier left. And while that might be seen as a criticism for Bordalas, because you can make the same argument when they played Real Madrid, the more subs Bordalas made, the weaker the team got. I feel that it's more symptomatic of the poor bench that there is at Valencia. And to compete for Europe or the Champions League, Valencia needs to have a strong bench, almost as strong as the ones that Betis, Villarreal, Sevilla have, or even Real Sociedad, because when injuries do happen to the squad, we've seen that the squad will crumble and they're not able to perform at the levels that they were. And maybe this team needs a big night against the top opponent to give them that belief that they can do it. They can compete with the best. And speaking of competing with the best, next weekend is going to be fire, because next weekend is El Clasico. And I'm going to just give a quick rundown of like both teams, why the reasons for optimism for both teams. And I'm going to start with Barcelona because the performances since Benfica have been decent. It was decent against Atletico. It was good in this game. And the next step is taking to the next step against Dynamo Kiev, which is a team that I feel they should beat. And if they can get that momentum, like, and it's leading up to that game, they could look over to Real Madrid and like, I know Real Madrid have been better than us in the last 2 games, but in the last 2 seasons, but Real Madrid, they haven't had the best of times recently. Prior to the international break, they drew Villarreal, they lost to Sheriff, they also lost to Espanyol. And you look at them and you're like, they're not in the best of form at the moment, and the results aren't coming for them. And the next game is against Shakhtar Donetsk in Ukraine. And we all know what happened to them the last time they played against Shakhtar in Ukraine. They lost 2-0. They lost to Shakhtar in both games. So they might come off a bad result there, and the pressure might be on Ancelotti. And at that point, maybe you see that Barcelona are possibly the favorites to win. But also at the same time, in a lot of these derby games, the form book goes out of the window, and sometimes it's about a matter of who has the best quality, who is more efficient, and can tell by the way the season has started that it's Real Madrid at the moment. Benzema is on fire, and if you put a gun to my head and you made me predict this game, I'd say Real Madrid were more likely to win. To win just because of how well they are, how well they play, and I think what happened before the international break was more of an aberration than a trend. But I could be wrong. But I do think it's going to be an exciting game, especially given the fact that both teams have problems in defense. So it's going to be goals galore. Because Valencia, like I said, they could have had chances to win or even tie this game, but they weren't efficient enough, and Real Madrid will not forgive the chances that Barcelona gives. Moving on to Betis versus Alaves, or Alaves versus Betis, whoever way you want to frame it. It was a Monday night graveyard shift. Alaves fans obviously don't like it. We saw what happened when they had that funeral celebration for football because they were playing on Mondays. And I'm going to speak a bit on that topic. I don't really get the point of Mondays, to be honest, because if you're going to have Monday night football, right, or rather it be like what they do in England, where the Monday night football games are usually with the top teams, like which would be like our Sevillas, our Valencias, our Barcelonas. And I think Barcelona have played a Monday night once this season. Rather than making it be Alaves, Granada, Elche, because I don't think those teams really do move the needle. And if a big team is playing on Monday Night Football and it's a big fixture, it might actually be a source of pride to play on those Monday night games than if it's just a graveyard shift. But the protests didn't help Alaves. They have been abysmal since the start of the season. They don't look like they're going anywhere, which is more surprising when they beat the current champions. It's just crazy how the season has been. And they lost this game as well to Real Betis, a late goal, an assist from old soldier Joaquin, the oldest player in La Liga to give an assist in the 21st century at the ripe young age of 40, assisting Bora Iglesias, the Panda, who had on my fantasy team, but I decided to bench, and he scored against Pacheco, who is the keeper I had on the fantasy team. So it was very painful, but it's good for Betis. Like they have started the season very well, and they're competing, and they're 2 points off the Champions League places. They're 5 points off the top, and Manuel Pellegrini has shown that he's a good manager in terms of balancing the demands of European football versus league football, because the problem Betis had in previous seasons where they'd been in Europe is they usually had poor performances. One season they got relegated, the other season and they were struggling to get past mid-table. But this season it seems like they will be competitive, they will be, and they will be there towards the end of the season. And yeah, like from Betis also Monday Night Football, Espanyol playing against Cadiz. Cadiz decided to have more possession of the ball this time, but Espanyol were brilliant. They played really well. They dominated the game. Raul de Tomas scoring a goal. He's been on fire recently, and Nico Melamed, who I really like as a player, he got the second goal, and it's a good win for Espanyol. It puts them mid-table. It's where we expected them to be because they had a bit of a rough start, and coming into the season, looking at the quality that they had, I expected Espanyol to comfortably stay up, to comfortably be mid-table, and that's where they find themselves at the moment. They're like comfortable. They're mid-table, and yeah. And finally, we're going to Levante versus Getafe, which the less said about this game, the better. Both teams looked like they were bereft of confidence. They didn't look like that. They had all the confidence in the world, and you could tell by the way the game happened. the way a lot of plays finished, they both look like teams that would struggle. And sometimes that's what happens in football, right? Like the same way a team, when you're playing really well, regardless of what level you're playing, either it's co-ed or you're playing professional football in La Liga and the Champions League, if you're winning games, you feel that confidence whenever you get onto the pitch. You want the ball more. You want to do things. But if you're like losing games, you're going several games without a win, it becomes a lot more difficult to have that confidence. And that's what we're seeing at the moment with these two teams, because the quality is there, but at the moment they just lack the confidence. And you saw that in some plays where like they'll get very close to the box, but a player will fall over himself, and they're not having the luck at the moment. And that's what Quique Sanchez Flores for Tafe needs to do, and Javi Pereira for Levante needs to do to get them back where they should be. Because I do feel that they have the squads to comfortably stay up in La Liga. And that's it for my roundup in Spain. We're moving to Serie A, where Napoli, they got a win against Torino thanks to, you guessed it, Victor Osimhen. Brilliant striker. They possibly going to win the league with Osimhen and 10 pieces of wood at this point, because Napoli, they're the only team with a 100% record in the top 5 or 6 leagues, however you want to slice it. And that's brilliant for them. They possibly have a clearer chance of winning the title than they did in 15-16 and 16-17 and 17-18, where they were also close, but they were going against a strong Juventus. So let's see how far this team can go. Their main rivals at the moment are Milan, who are 2 points behind them. They're also unbeaten in this league. And you felt maybe the loss was coming against Milan, but they did pass the Verona test, because Verona are one of those teams that they can give the big boys a big run for their money. And they almost did it with Milan. But Milan, they had the resilience to come back, and we saw a lot of that this weekend, and they did come back from 2-0 down to win it 3-2. And this is the sort of results that maybe makes a Champions team, a team that can fight and win the league. And Milan, maybe it's time to start seeing them as a title candidate, as a team that's a serious title challenger, and maybe possibly the favorites to win the league, because they do have a really good team. They were impressive whenever I've seen them. When I saw them against Atletico, they looked very, very good. And definitely, given how Inter and Juventus have started, you would fancy Milan. Milan would possibly fancy their chances to outperform Napoli, because at some point Napoli would have to drop their level a bit, and they can keep winning forever. But it would be amazing for Napoli fans, I'm sure, if they do. The city rivals Inter, they stumbled against Lazio, and this is one of the areas where I feel the different approaches different leagues have taken might have affected some teams. Because in La Liga, teams that play on Tuesday were given the week off. In Portugal, I believe every team got that week off. And in Inter, the Inter manager Simone Inzaghi was sort of like comparing the styles, and he was hoping that Serie A used La Liga's approach, because he couldn't start Lautaro for this game, he couldn't start Joaquin Correa for this game, and that possibly influenced how it happened. But the win is a setback for Inter. It is a mini crisis for them, because they've had some poor results. They're far away from Napoli. They're 7 points behind Napoli, 5 points behind Milan, and they have a huge Champions League tie coming up against Sheriff, which they have to win in order to be in contention to qualify out of this group. And if they don't qualify, that'll be a failure for Simone Inzaghi. And coming up the line is Juventus. In Juve, they won against Roma. They won somewhat controversially, but Juve always wins controversially. just joking. But yeah, it sets things nicely for the Derby d'Italia, which is coming up next week. If Juve beats Inter, they could potentially go ahead of Inter in the head-to-head, because I believe Serie A uses that as well as La Liga. And that's coming up, and that looks super exciting for Juventus. They are back on track. They are 3 points away from third place. They're 1 point away from fourth. And the old lady's back. Can they win Serie A? I don't know. I feel at this point Napoli and Milan would have to seriously let their level down if to allow Juve back into the race. Atalanta, they smacked Empoli by 4 goals to 1. Joseph Ilicic is on score sheet. Valencia's biggest nightmare from what he did to Valencia 2 seasons in the Champions League. 2 seasons ago in the Champions League. And he had a falling out with Gasperini, but it's nice to see him back into the team, scoring goals. Again, their next opponents in the Champions League are Manchester United, who they got a thrashing of their own against Leicester. And the questions are about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job. I personally don't think he should be in the job. I don't think he has the credibility to be in the job. I don't think he has the tactical acumen to be in it. It's true that it got into the semi-final of the Europa League. They got in back-to-back top fours. They got into the final of the Europa League. But I believe a stronger manager would have, first of all, they wouldn't have competed in the Europa League last season to begin with. And secondly, they'll be doing better because they do have a really good squad. But he might be the guy holding them back. And yeah, and they have a tough game coming up against Liverpool, who have a tough week coming up. But the weekend it was anything but tough. They comfortably beat Watford by 5 goals to 0. They victory all scoring, and a massive message to Klopp's nemesis Diego Simeone, because they do play Atletico Madrid midweek, and Klopp bashed Atletico style, and Diego Simeone's one-word response was nothing in English. And so it's gonna be fireworks on Tuesday when both teams come together. And I don't know. Atletico Madrid, they've had the week off, but I'm not sure whether it really helps them, because Barca, Sevilla, and Villarreal had the week off, and they both had like horrible starts to their respective games. Sevilla gave up like 3 penalties. Villarreal scored so early into the game. Barca really struggled against Bayern, so I'm not sure how much that helps. But I do think it's going to be a very good game. Atletico Madrid, they can raise your level at any point, and having the Wanda at their back can mean that they can rise to the occasion, especially against an opponent as big as Liverpool. Liverpool with Klopp, he's never won in Spain. Might be the best time to win in Spain right now. But yeah, it'll be a fantastic game. They also have the Manchester United game to think about on Sunday, next week Sunday, and that should be a fireworks game. It might be the end of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I don't know. We'll see. Chelsea also won by the minimum against Brentford, and by all reports, it seems like it was Edouard Mendy who saved their bacon in this game, because they didn't have the best of games. City won comfortably against I think it was against Burnley. I could be wrong, but they won the game comfortably. And finally, the big news over the international break in England was with Newcastle and their takeover, right? And it's a shame that we couldn't record the Super League podcast, especially given that it happened in the week that Newcastle takeover got announced. But due to logistics, we just couldn't record it. However, it's something I'll just touch on it a bit, like some of my thoughts a bit, especially regarding this takeover. I personally don't have a problem with mega takeovers, but I think one issue that UEFA needs to apply across the board is the financial fair play, because it does keep teams like PSG, City, or any team with a big investor who has deep pockets, who's willing to spend way above their means. It gives them an unfair advantage, in my opinion. And it also influences the markets in a way that it shouldn't be influenced. It distorts a lot of the valuations, and rather than maybe saying that, okay, this team can have this investor from this country, UEFA could use a similar approach they used in La Liga, where Almeria, for example, they have Saudi capital. However, what they can spend is limited, and what they can spend, they have to use it to capitalize the club. What they can declare as income is also limited, and they also have to be within La Liga's financial fair play rules. So Almeria right now, they have the best quality in the second division, but they haven't qualified for La Liga, and that sort of has to do with how strict La Liga is with the financial fair play, in that you can invest in your club, but you can only invest up to a certain amount in a way that doesn't distort the competition. And maybe that's a model that UEFA should go towards. But I think UEFA is going towards the opposite direction, where you can spend whatever you want as long as you pay the luxury tax, which distorts everything, especially when you have so many billionaire owners in one specific country. You're going to get a backlash from the other top European leagues. But one league that definitely wouldn't join it, regardless of circumstances, is the Bundesliga. But the Bundesliga also has its own issues, critics of the Bundesliga will be like, I'm not going to watch this league because Bayern always wins, and they always win by big score lines, which is definitely true this weekend when they beat Leverkusen by 5 goals to 1, and you saw the same familiar tropes come out about the Bundesliga. But I don't think it's as bad as people say, because although not Leipzig, Leverkusen were third coming into this fixture, they didn't finish in the top four last season. They're not in Champions League, and it's similar to Real Sociedad when they didn't finish in the top four, but they got a 6-1 thrashing by Barcelona. So I don't see why Bayern, who are the best team in the world at the moment, who have gotten big score lines against Spurs 7-2 in their own stadium, Barca 3-0 in their own stadium. We all know about the 8-2. They thrashed Atletico 4-0 last season, Chelsea 4-1 and 3-0 the season before. So why shouldn't they beat Leverkusen by 5 goals to 1? And it's not like it doesn't happen in other leagues. Like I already mentioned the Real Sociedad Barca example, but also Spurs beat United 6-1 at Old Trafford as well. And even going back into the annals, I'm sure for each league you can find big score lines between teams that are very close. Leicester beating Southampton 9-0. So yeah, it's a big result. It's an eye-catching result, but we have to get away from, and I think this is something we see in football, tearing down other leagues and other teams, and just appreciate the fact that Bayern are a great team, which means that some of their games might not be competitive at all, but it's not like a team can come to Bayern Stadium and beat them like it's happening in the Allianz Arena, or a team can beat Bayern by 4 or 5 goals to 1 like it happened under Niko Kovac's reign. So, or even under Flick, they lost 4-1 once. So it's not that it always happens that Bayern always wins every game 5-1. I think that's total horse crap. I'm gonna get demonetized. But yeah, it's it's not like it doesn't happen all the time. It's not like Bayern always wins by those big margins all the time, right? So yeah, but it is what it is. Dortmund, they got a win again. They're second. They're behind Bayern. Erling Haaland came back. He scored a double against Mainz, but Leipzig and Wolfsburg found a way to drop points. While Freiburg, they're still undefeated. They're still in the top four of the Bundesliga. I don't know how, but they're still there. The other surprising team that we're following were Lens, who lost this weekend. Paris Saint-Germain were close to losing to Angers, which could have been the story of the week, but they found a way to claw it back. They won 2-1 against Angers. And Marseille, they won 4-1 against Lorient. Right now, Paris Saint-Germain, they have a 9-point gap over Lens, a 10-point gap over Marseille. But the 10-point gap could potentially be cut to a 4-point gap. Let me explain. Next week is Le Clasique, which is the big game between Marseille and Paris Saint-Germain. And if Marseille wins that, it cuts the points down to 7 points. Marseille have a game in hand that was suspended due to crowd violence against Nice. If they also win that game, that's a 4-point gap, which means that high Liga in France. But given Marseille's track record against PSG, I don't see that happening. Also in France, Lyon, they won their big game against Monaco, which means that they're 2 points off second, where Lens is. Lille lost their game but against Clermont Foot, but they're 4 points off second. So it's a very compressed league that we see in France. But a story I want to speak about in France is Saint-Etienne, and they lost 5-1 against Strasbourg. Kevin Gamero scored a goal, Valencia legend, And but it's not about Kim at Strasbourg. It's about Saint Etienne, which is one of the big names of French football in the 70s and 80s. They really are a sleeping giant in French football. I'll compare them to their if they do get relegated to the relegations of Atletico Madrid, the relegations of Hamburg, and they are teams that they're like they're a team that French football would sorely miss. So I hope they can get back on their feet. I hope they can avoid a relegation. But it is worrying to see what's happening there, and I'll keep an eye out for that in future episodes. Hopefully, they're able to get out of their slump and they can continue in top flight football and continue playing against Lyon, because it's easy 6 points for Lyon, and why wouldn't I want that as a Lyon apologist? There were no games in Portugal this weekend. However, I watched some Belgian football with Club Brugge, who they really impress me every time I see them play. So I wanted to see them in their own league, and it was a very impressive performance from them. They won 2-0. Rohan Lang was brilliant. The Catala was also brilliant, and right now they're second in their league. And I think the team that's on top is Union Saint Galois. So I know not much about this team, so I'm not going to blow too much of their horn, but it'll be interesting to see if they can continue their progress and whether they can win the whole thing. And that's something I like to do with a lot of these European leagues that I don't usually follow. When there's a team that's there that's unexpectedly on top, like Trabzonspor for in Turkey right now, they're top. I would like to follow their stories, and that's something I might do in this podcast. We can follow them when they're top. We can rejoice when they lose points. We can cry together, and when they eventually don't win it, we'll be like, we should have known. We should have trusted that the teams that always win end up winning. But that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed my rants and my analysis. And if you did enjoy it, give a like, retweet, share with your friends.